a year and a half ago, I quit my full-time job with Chicago Fire, which it was tough because I was working 9 to 5 and then I was streaming every single night from like 7 p.m. to 11. I signed with my favorite club in the world, which is Manchester City. Like, as a fan, you put all of these players up on this massive pedestal and you don't really see them as like humans. And then you start working with them and you're like, oh my gosh, these guys are so cool. These women are so amazing. So I'm a woman in the space, which is, it brings a different type of vibe because there's not many of us in gaming, and then obviously the sports content creation side. Yeah, it's cool. I mean, and it's not to say that I don't receive a lot of hate online. It's almost every single day that I get told to get back in the kitchen for my opinion on football or gaming. But like the hope is that I could take the brunt of it and create a space so that in the future women can come into gaming and obviously be football fans and not hear all of it in the future.
All right, Kacee, thanks for joining me today.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, first question. Big fan of your stuff, by the way, your content. Just talk a little bit about your day-to-day, what you do exactly for our audience.
Sure. So I am a FC and football content creator. And so there's a lot of different things that fit underneath that umbrella, everywhere from streaming on Twitch, gameplay, like 6 days a week. I play a lot of FC24, aka previous iterations FIFA, for those of you that don't play the game. But yeah, so I play a lot of FC24, and then I'm also partnered with Man City, so I do content and hosting for them. And then recently I've been doing some presenting and reporting on like the FIFA pro scene as well. And so I just went over to London. So every day looks completely different. There's no day that I'm like, all right, I know exactly what to expect today, because every day is insane and so much fun. And it's just been quite the whirlwind, quite the journey.
Yes, there's a lot to unpack here. So I see your background right now. You mentioned Man City. Let's talk about your role with Man City and how that's kind of developed. If you want to kind of dive into that from the beginning, like where did that come about and what exactly did you do?
Sure. So even I'll go before Man City because that's kind of how I got into it. So what year was it? 2016. I started working for Chicago Fire. That is MLS team here in Chicago. I was in marketing, and then I don't know how, but at some point when you work in marketing, like you just get a lot of things thrown at you. At some point, the gaming side was also given to me because I knew that like I've played video games. I liked soccer, football. And so that was one of my tasks. And then I just started developing their gaming program. I signed our pro players, the marketing side of it, obviously. I traveled to all the competitions. And so then I really, really got involved with that because I absolutely loved it. And then COVID hit. Started streaming on Twitch because everyone had so much time. So they just started up little hobbies. And then, that kind of took off. And then a year and a half ago, I quit my full-time job with Chicago Fire, which it was tough because I was working 9 to 5 and then I was streaming every single night from like 7 p.m. to 11. And so I was just working insane hours. Had to make a choice. And then I eventually chose my own like creative route, being a content creator. And with that, I signed with my favorite club in the world, which is Manchester City. They were able to help me. Obviously, I needed to get paid something. And so they're able to help me continue with that journey. And I've been with them for over a year now, and I'm signed as a content creator. Got to go on the preseason tour with them to Tokyo and Seoul, Korea. Unreal. And so I've gotten to do a lot of very cool things with them.
Yeah, I want to get into the traveling side because I just saw you were in London. You said you were in South Korea. You were in Japan, of course. So Man City approaching you out of the Chicago Fire role. Talk about the grind that is like you have your 9 to 5. I currently 9 to 5. I do this on the side. So I kind of feel some of your pain. You've like broken off from those shackles. Now you're doing this full time. Talk about the grind, like the mental exhaustion you go through day to day with that.
Yeah, I'll be honest. So I quit obviously the 9 to 5, but I'm also the type of person that I love working and I love staying busy. So I'm actually still working similar hours. It's not where like I have to be in the office at 9 a.m., but I wake up and I'm like, all right, let me get on TikTok. Let me continue to like ideate and think of new ideas that I can run and do with my own content. So I wake up, I am constantly looking for new ideas, thinking of new stuff for my own platforms. I'm answering emails, hopping on calls, whether that's with EA, Man City. I also do stuff with eMLS as well, just from the content side. And so I'm doing that. And then also making videos with some of my sponsors. I have X-Rocker as a sponsor, a couple other ones like that. And so I'm doing things on that side. And then I'm streaming all night. So I'm still doing all of that. But yeah, I mean, it's a constant grind, but I absolutely love it. And I wouldn't want it any other way.
So do you still stream every day? Is that
every day? As long as I'm not traveling. When I'm home at my own setup, I'm streaming. Yeah.
Okay. Talk a little about your day-to-day with Man City then. Like, what are the roles and responsibilities with that? Is there any, like, you know, obviously different time zone and everything, and you've gone over there, I've seen content, the cool experiences that have come out of that, and maybe some of the challenges.
Yeah, so I do a lot of different things with them, whether it's remote here in North America, I'll do watch parties, that sort of thing for some of the IRL football matches, both on the men's and women's side, which are really cool. That's actually one of the parts that I was really excited to do because I really like women's football as well. So supporting them on that. Been to a couple of women's football games on behalf of Man City too, which is really cool. And then, I mean, my number one thing that I've done is go on the preseason tour. So with that, I did some content with Gatorade and Man City. I got to work with John Stones, Rodri, like all these amazing people in the videos. And we were just like chatting about hydration and that sort of thing, doing different challenges with Julian Lescott. And so I've been thrown straight into the deep end to do amazing content with some of the first team players. And then I also do a lot of stuff on the eSports side too. So they have 2 pro FIFA players right now, Tex, who's one of the best players in the world, and Matías Bonanno. And so I'm doing stuff with them and supporting them on their competitive journey. Because I don't call myself a competitive FC24 player. It's mainly just like for fun, entertainment, that sort of thing. But yeah.
Gotcha. Break down your encounters with some of these Man City players. Like, are they typically excited to do this content? Are they, because I've seen some of it looks fun. Like if you're a player and you're getting involved, what's that like?
Yeah, I think it depends on the shoot. It depends on the day. Like they could have a day of practice that's really, really rough, and then they have to go do a content shoot.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, they're like any other human. Some of them are a lot more talkative than others. Some of them are very funny. Like I did the Gatorade shoot with John Stones, and he was just laughing the entire time. It was, it was very, very funny. And then obviously there's different languages too. And so some people are more comfortable speaking in English on videos. And so you really, each individual person will bring a different vibe and like overall persona to the shoot. But no, everyone I've worked with has been super fun. I mean, like no one's been difficult. They're all easy to talk to. And so it's been really cool.
So I asked Isaac, HRV Isaac, who's on my channel before. He's a YouTuber. And he had trouble answering this question. If I think maybe for you, you might not have trouble with this. When you started to meet these Man City players and travel with Man City, literally this was a turnaround of like a year, it sounds like. You were working for the Chicago Fire. That's a big accomplishment in itself, getting a job with the MLS team. Very competitive, do that. But did you ever picture this happening? Like, did you ever picture you traveling with the team? And like, was this always an end goal, or did it just kind of come out of nowhere?
Like, it's funny, right? Because you go from being a fan of a club to working with them. And it is quite the weird process because I feel like as a fan, you put all of these players up on this massive pedestal and you don't really see them as like humans. And then you start working with them and you're like, oh my gosh, these guys are so cool. These women are so amazing. And so it's definitely like a transition period. I remember, so during the Man City USA tour this last summer when they came to Green Bay, that was one of my first appearances. I did some like TikToks and that sort of thing, but they let me meet Kevin De Bruyne. And that was the first time he's my favorite player in the entire world. And so I tried my very best not to fangirl, but on the inside, I was freaking out, like absolutely freaking out. I was so excited. And eventually that kind of wears off, but you still have that like nervousness. You know what? I still feel that over Pep. He's the only one now that I still get nervous about.
I think everyone gets nervous around Pep. You know, I can't speak on behalf of the players, but I heard from you know, people we both know that when you're around Pep, like it's a big deal. Like he has this aura about him, this personality, this charisma. So do you get to interface with him a lot? Have you met him a couple times? Like, what's that like?
It's literally been like, hello. That's it. I don't know if he necessarily knows me by name. He might recognize my face because I'm in their content, but like, I don't know. He has, like you said, it's this aura. He just is so confident the way he just like, so he'll be walking down the tunnel and I'll just be like watching as he goes. But no, he's very, very nice as well. Always on the move, always like, he knows exactly what he's doing every step of the way, and you could just tell, and it's intimidating, but like you also look up to him and like idolize him, so it's very cool.
Okay. What about the other like fixtures at Man City? You know, like Liam Gallagher, Noel Gallagher. Have you ever met them? Like, you know, the Oasis brothers or anything? Because I know they're heavily involved with the club.
I haven't. I would like to one day. I think that would be really cool. I've met like Julian Lescott, Sean Wright Phillips, those people who are like legends of the game and don't necessarily play anymore. They're super awesome to work with. The Gatorade video I did, it was me and Julian Lescott doing challenges in both Japan and Korea. So that was cool. But yeah, there's like adjacent people who maybe don't necessarily play anymore that I've got to meet, which has been really fun.
Okay. Fandom in Korea and Japan. Can you describe that? Because I know I feel like we know the history of Man City versus United. United was famous for doing those Southeast Asian tours where they have tons of fans. They still do. But Man City now on the scene, what's it like when you travel there? I mean, is it just hundreds of thousands of people just waiting for City every move?
So it's interesting, right? I have no idea what to expect because first of all, I've never been to Asia. And so I was like, are they all going to know the players? Like how do they view English football? And I got there. The amount of Man City jerseys that I saw just walking around the city are insane. And I'm like, where did you guys all get all of his gear so quickly? So they were prepared. Each stadium that we went to was sold out. Even in Korea, it was we played Bayern and then we also played Atletico. And the entire stadium was City. And technically, like, it's a friendly. It's not necessarily just a Man City game. Like, there could equally be enough Bayern fans or Man City fans, but the entire stadium was filled with Man City fans. Everyone loves Haaland. Everyone loves Grealish. Like, they are obsessed with Man City, and it was really, really cool to see. And like, even though I didn't speak the same language as all of them, we were all there, just so excited to see our team play, and it was really cool.
I believe it was Tokyo. I saw a shot of Holland. You know, Tokyo is just ridiculous when it comes to tech. Like, they're just light years advanced. It's like a different civilization entirely. I saw like this massive picture of like multiple screens of Holland. I don't know if you saw the same thing in downtown Tokyo. There was like
was it coming off the buses?
Coming off the buses, yes. Yeah,
that was AI generated, by the way. That it wasn't like a real thing.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's funny. It's funny you say that because multiple people asked me, they're like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't even know that technology existed." I'm like, "No, like someone made that."
I never put past the Japanese because they are so advanced.
Yeah.
It's like what should New York City look like in 10 years from now? Like everything is so clean and yeah. And I haven't been there before, but this is just me speaking from some friends who have traveled there. Let's go to FC24. I know we're bouncing around a little bit, but I have a lot to talk to you about. FC24, what are your impressions of the game coming from FIFA?
Yeah, so number one thing, the biggest change for me is that they've added women into the game. And I've been a part of that journey a bit as EA have been navigating how to integrate them. Because in my opinion, it's one of the biggest decisions they've ever made because how they integrate such a new player base is important, right? If they do it wrong, it completely set us up in the future for not supporting women's football. But the way that they did it is really, really great. Like the cards are realistic in the fact that they are able to compete amongst the women and the men. And at the end of the day, if you look at the pro scene, they're using the cards. So that's how you know that they did a good job because you have Caroline Graham-Hansen on the right. You have Alexia Putellas, two of the best players in the world playing for Barcelona. And they're very, very usable cards. And even like promo cards, like people are excited. And I know that a lot of people were talking a lot of smack about some of these cards getting in there. And there's always going to be a lot of talk like that. But at the end of the day, when they announced the people who are nominated for the Women's Ballon d'Or, so many people knew them. And if they weren't playing FC24, they probably wouldn't have known them. And so I saw so many people tweet like, oh yeah, I packed her yesterday. Now I know who she is. And she's nominated for a Women's Ballon d'Or. And that wouldn't have happened if EA didn't add them into the game. So that's the number one takeaway that I've had from it, amongst other things like gameplay and that, which has changed a bit. But that, like, it's honestly monumental for women's football.
It's huge. And it must be interesting for you traveling to, England with City and seeing, obviously English women's national team winning the Euros. Oddly enough, I was in Manchester when that happened. I think, is it George's Square? I forget what's in the center. I'm probably going to correct it in the comments, but
not sure.
Yeah, it's whatever. The big square is in the center, and they had a huge screen out, and it was the final, and it was packed. It was awesome. And here I was, we're American, thinking like, okay, like our guys' team is a little bit behind the eight ball, but the women's team, obviously best in the world. Kind of, it was my opportunity to like talk smack, and then they win the Euros. It's like, oh, great. Yeah, but you saw that. That was awesome. And I'd imagine that like FC24 is bringing that out. So have you seen a change? Like just traveling, have you seen more women jerseys around and more people talking about the game?
Yeah, I think so. I think that even before FC24 came out, we've seen a shift in terms of people's attention on the game. I mean, the Women's World Cup was monumental as well. The thing about the Women's World Cup is that the time, I don't know for people in the UK, but it was hard to watch for in the US. But even though it's hard to watch, I'm still staying up till 6 a.m. And obviously, I'm a super fan, but more and more people are chatting about it. And if you look at the Barcelona women's team, which is arguably the best women's team in the world right now, they're selling out stadiums, and that's never happened previously. And even like Arsenal women, Chelsea women are very, very good. Sam Kerr played for my local, and she's just killing it. But like, if you ask someone if they know Sam Kerr, I would say that more people know now than they did 5 years ago. So we're making small changes, but at least we're going in the right direction. We have a ways to go, though. That's for sure.
And the NWSL just signing a massive television contract, which is huge for the growth of the sport. So yeah, I would say we're moving in the right direction. Okay, let's talk about this, because this is another thing. All right, you stream every day. You're constantly traveling. Like, when do you relax? And can you ever completely relax? Like, is it tough to turn it off?
It is, right? Because at this point, I'm my own boss, and so I'll be my harshest critic at the end of the day. And so, but I get antsy. Like, I can't just sit there and watch Netflix. I'm sitting there watching Netflix while I'm also doing stuff in FC24 and like prepping for my stream. So I'm just the type of person who never stop. And so the only time I ever will is if I'm on like a proper vacation. I'll turn my phone off and that. But if I'm at home, I'm always doing something to hopefully like set me up for tomorrow, or like doing quick editing that I might need next week, or, you know, doing research. But even like scrolling through TikTok for me is still working and doing research, because I'm constantly like thinking of new ideas, and I'm thinking of trends that I could do on my own channel. So yeah, I don't really ever turn it off, unless I'm literally sitting on a beach with a margarita. But
yeah,
it's tough. Yeah.
Does it ever just feel like mentally exhausting, or do you love it so much that it's?
I would say it doesn't really feel like it's mentally exhausting. There's days where I'm like, okay, I have 5 things on my to-do list. Do I have enough time? Can I fit it all in? And that's a little stressful, but I love what I'm doing. I love football. I love gaming. I love the community that I've fostered through all of it. And so, yeah, no, I've never been like, oh man, I got to do all of this today. And so I'm always excited every single day that I get to do all this. Yeah, it's cool.
You're like the 1/10 of 1% of people out there who like love what they do. So how do you get that 99.99% of people out there who don't like what they do? You know, what's the advice to them? People who are listening to this, watching this, and thinking like, oh, I wish I could be like Kacee, but it's impossible. What's your advice?
The thing is, right, I couldn't quit my full-time job until I was in a good spot. And so for 2 years, that's where I felt the fatigue, is when I was doing both. I loved working for the Fire, but there's only so much time in the day, and like I was scarfing down dinner before a stream, and so I was constantly rushed. And so that was a time when I was literally grinding day in and day out, and I was exhausted. Plus, like, I had game days on the weekend, so I don't even have proper days off, because even on a Sunday when we might not have an MLS game, I was still streaming. And so I had absolutely no time off. But like, sometimes it takes doing that and grinding, and like that can affect your outside relationships. Like, at that point, how do you have a boyfriend? Like, when do you go talk to your mom? And so sometimes you have to give that up for a little bit in order to hopefully bring that side project into a full project. It just takes a little bit of grinding.
It's a risk. Like, how did you balance those like family relationships and friend relationships? And like, what's your advice on that side? Because that's a really good point. Like, you don't even think about that. So what's your advice there? Yeah,
I mean, at the end of the day, I was lucky enough to have friends and family that supported me, and they're like, all right, if I haven't heard from Kacee in 3 days, I'm not going to freak out. I know she's eventually going to get back to me. And even if it's like, all right, mom, you got 5 minutes, let's chat. Let's quickly like get it together there. But it takes that. And eventually it all paid out, right? Like, I had 2 full years of just grinding, and then now I can have an hour conversation with my mom or go visit her in the suburbs. But yeah, they have to understand, and if they can't understand, then it is what it is. But like, if you want to make your dream become a reality, those are some of the sacrifices that you have to take.
So your handle's Chai Kacee. You're grounded, like, it's Chicago is where you're from, right? Born and raised, I'm assuming, or suburbs around there. What does the city of Chicago mean for you? Like, what? Tell anyone who's listening, like, what is Chicago like? Should they visit Chicago?
It's funny because I was literally just in the car today and I was telling myself, because it's almost every day that someone comes to my stream that isn't from the United States. They're like, Chicago, like what a bad place. Because you hear so many bad things about Chicago. But I was in the car today.
Were you there when this might predate your time at the Fire, when they asked Bastian Schweinsteiger if they were going to win?
I worked at the Fire Pitch, the location that he was at. Oh my gosh. It was one of the funniest moments, but also most like I could feel the embarrassment through that media member in the process. Insane.
Oh, that's as bad as like Fight and Win in a way, you know, that like classic. It's just like different scales. Yeah, but sorry to cut you off.
No worries. No, I was in the car today and I was like, there's no one that fights harder than a Chicago person fighting about how great their city is, because we just love our city so much and it gets such a bad rep around the world, but I wouldn't want it anywhere else. So I grew up in the suburbs. I went to college in Chicago and then I never went home. Sure. So I've been living in like Chicago proper since 2011 and I absolutely love it. I live in Humboldt Park and it's great. The food is great. The people are great. The music, everything is great. The sports, I mean, we don't win a lot in sports. Our sports teams are not that great right now, but we'll be back. Chicago Fire will be back. The Bears will be back, like everyone. Yes.
iconic American sports franchises. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And it's a great place to be for sure.
So maybe part of that's rubbed off on you, kind of that like chip on the shoulder, Chicago attitude, would you say?
Yeah, I think so. Like I'll fight someone about Chicago, not really, but like I'll constantly.
Is that a cliche thing to say, or is it real? Like, is it real? Like, kind of, if you feel it amongst the people?
No, you do. Like, if I meet someone away from Chicago and they're from Chicago, we're instantly gonna have a bond because we love our city and we can bond about that. It's pretty cool.
It's cool you're bringing this up because I'm from Philly and Philadelphia has a bad rep too. So I kind of feel you here. You know, I feel like, well, Chicago has the skyline, right? New York, whether you're New York, it's LA, they kind of get all the attention, you know?
They do.
But yeah. Places like Chicago or Philadelphia, or even sometimes Boston gets too much attention, in my opinion, but that's another story. So yeah, what about your supporters, your fans, who've kind of like joined you along this journey? What has that been like? You know, like, do they kind of keep you going, would you say? Like,
yeah, it's cool because so I started off on Twitch and that's where I'd say I have the most loyal group of people. And I hate calling them fans. Like I just call them like my community, I guess.
That's cool.
But so the thing about my community that I love so much, and so I'm a woman in the space, which it brings a different type of vibe because there's not many of us in gaming and then obviously the sports content creation side. And so the space that I've created on Twitch, I'd like to call it like I hate calling it like a safe space, but like we're always comfortable with each other in the fact that you could come in, you could be a woman, it doesn't matter who you are, and you could talk about your opinion on football and no one's going to come in there and be like, oh, name the starting 11 of blah, blah, blah. When did you win in like 1960? That sort of thing. Like, I know that you know the game. It doesn't matter if you're a man, woman, whatever. And so we're always comfortable to talk about football in any single setting. And I'm really proud that I've built that because there's not many spaces on the internet that you can go do that.
It's really interesting you bring this up because I'm about to have tomorrow I'm actually be interviewing her. Name's EFL Girl. She does TikTok videos. She does away days in the UK. And she's a Plymouth Argyle fan. And she's gotten some abuse for some of her comments. Now she dishes it out for sure, but a lot of time it's like over the top response. And she's kind of trying to strike a balance to finding a safe space too. So I think in football and soccer, we have a long way to go. But yeah, maybe in a way you're kind of trailblazing that, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, and it's not to say that I don't receive a lot of hate online. It's almost every single day that I get told to get back in the kitchen for my opinion on football or gaming. But like the hope is that I could take the brunt of it and create a space so that in the future women can come into gaming and obviously be football fans and not hear all of it in the future. But we have a long way to go. And I definitely feel where she's coming from because I'll give you a quick story. So there was a girl who lost 24-0 in a Mexican FIFA league a couple of years ago. And someone made a TikTok saying it was me. And for months and months and months, people were coming into my comments, thousands and thousands of comments saying 24-0, stop playing the game, like telling me horrible things. And it wasn't even me, but like, that's the type of thing that one little thing about women in gaming can just blow up and become detrimental. And so it's a tough space to be in. You got to definitely, like you said, you have to have a chip on your shoulder to survive.
Yeah, so Chicago prepared you well for that. But
Yes.
I still don't think anyone can be prepared completely for that. You know, it takes a strong personality. So what's some strategies? Like if there's any other women out there who want to be content creators who maybe are struggling with this, maybe they've started or they hear stories like this, what's your advice to them? Like how do you kind of block that out?
Yeah, honestly, you kind of have to read the comments sometimes because there are good comments, but you can't take them to heart. And you can, it's difficult, right? Because there's going to be that one comment that just gets under your skin no matter what you do. But at the end of the day, you have to surround yourself with people that support you, and you listen to them and only them, and you ignore everyone else that is against you. Because at the end of the day, there's going to be haters out there that don't even know you. They don't even care about your opinion, and they're just going to, chat shit about it. So ignore it as much as possible and just continue pushing, because you have to have enough confidence in yourself and your knowledge about the game and your performance in gaming, if that's what you're in, that to continue to keep going. And if you love what you're doing, you got to keep doing it. It doesn't matter, like, whatever the haters say.
So I had actually a conversation, a couple more questions, then we'll wind down. A conversation with a coworker yesterday. He's a baseball fan. So he said back in 2008, I think it was, he was number 8 in the world in MLB The Show. But that was back in a time where like you couldn't really do anything with that. Like it was YouTube was very young. Twitch wasn't around. There was really no professional gaming circuit. The growth of gaming, sports gaming, for anyone listening, what's that been like? Like I've seen you attend some of these events, and like Landon Donovan and ex-US men's national team players are there, ex-women's national team or current women's national team players are there. What's that like?
Yeah, I mean, if we look at the scene and compare it to even 10 years ago, it is massive. You can, not just FIFA or FC. If you look at Fortnite, you could be a millionaire playing the game. You can get a full college-wide scholarship playing it. And specific to FC24, this year, they've completely rebranded the scene. It's really, really cool. So what I've been working on the broadcast side is the FC Open. So that's the best players in the world competing from every single region. A lot of prize money. But then you also have individual football leagues. So we have EMLS, E-Premier League, Bundesliga. They all have their own virtual leagues. So you could be signed by your favorite team at like Manchester City and play on behalf of them, win prize money, win physical trophies. And so there's definitely an avenue for it. And I know a lot of people who have, I'm not saying to like quit college or anything, but like they don't go to college because they're becoming professional FIFA players. And so if you're good enough at the game, there's definitely a job for it.
It's gotten to the point where I know, like being from Philadelphia Union supporter, I did a stadium tour. I have season tickets to the Union. They have their own gaming room at Subaru Park. Like it's sweet. I know some of the parents freak out because they pay all this money to bring their kid to a game, and then they're sitting and playing video games. But that's just like what this means. In fact, like Philly is building a stadium right by all the stadiums for gaming. I know, and that's starting to happen nationwide.
Yeah, it's sick. It's growing more and more, and specifically to EMLS, their league is. Yeah. I'm biased a bit because I worked alongside it, but like their league is really well put together. They have LAN tournaments in person. They have online qualifiers. They have amateur tournaments for people who are trying to get into the scene. And so they do a lot on the gaming side, but it's cool because it all ties back to the IRL football club. And if you're a fan of their gamer, you're also a fan and wearing the kit, like the regular kit. So like gaming and regular football fans can come together in that regard.
Yeah. And now that you bring it up, it's crazy. A league like MLS that's constantly growing. Obviously Messi's playing it. It had that history of signing back in the day, not anymore. Like let's say MLS 1.0, older players on their way out. They've gotten past that. They're signing a lot of young South American talent, bringing in absolute studs who are like in their early 30s at the late end. But yeah, they're interesting clubs to play as in FC24 because you get to play as some of like your favorite players. They have tons of talent. Do you think the growth of FC24 and formerly FIFA has like helped MLS in particular?
I think so. Think about Ultimate Team in all of the FIFA iterations and FC24 is that they create elevated versions of the players too. So even maybe like a youngster that comes to MLS, say he has a really good game, they can make a promo card and they're competing with R9, Ronaldinho. Like you could put him alongside those guys and make like your dream team. And so you could pick and choose. And I think in the past, a lot of them would choose Premier League and a lot of the bigger leagues. But with a lot of these newcomers into MLS, you're creating these different variations in the game that you could finally use them and win games. And even if you're from North America, you're competing with those players too, and just like making your dream team. And it's pretty cool. I've seen more and more MLS cards in the game that people are actually using.
Okay. Last question. So what's next? Like, you're looking ahead, and it's tough to like really, you know, because obviously if we're talking gaming, it evolves so quickly. But like with everything that you do, like where do you see Kacee going in the next couple years? Let's keep it there.
Sure. Difficult question, because honestly, I'm super happy with what I'm doing right now. I would say elevate it even more. I'm really excited about, I just started doing broadcast stuff. And so I want to get better at it. And I know that I have a ways to go in terms of improving on that, because it's way different than sitting behind a webcam on stream and just like talking to my chat. And so I'm learning from that regard, and I want to do more IRL football stuff. And so getting over to Manchester, doing even more things with their first team would be really, really cool. I know the World Cup is coming up soon for North America, so I'd love to do content around that. And that would be really cool. Yeah.
All right, you guys heard it from Kacee, one of the few people out there in the world who enjoy what they do, which is amazing. It's so awesome, and I can see the passion coming through the mic here. So thank you so much for joining today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Take care.